Say something.
I was waiting for the screen to pop up. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Furbabies podcast, episode 2. I am Stephanie Goodman. I'm your host for today, and I have Scott Carson on with me, who's helping to produce this. Thank you, Scott. Hi, Scott.
What's going on from 12 feet away?
Happy Sunday, everybody.
So what are we going to cover on this episode, Steph?
Today, we decided to do a special episode and entitle it The Princess Diaries. The Princess Diaries is actually about a really sweet golden lab that we had the pleasure of knowing for Scott over 17 years, and for me about 6.5 years. Well, 6 years. And her name, as you could probably guess, was Princess. So we wanted to talk a little bit about how deep those bonds form and kind of what you go through when you know that they're coming towards the end of their life. Things that you can do to help and things that you can use or do to help when you have to cope with the loss of them. Scott?
I'm good. You're doing a great job. You don't need me.
I think you probably have a better intro to her than I do.
I'm just making sure my audio sounds good. Yeah, does it sound good in your headset, Steph?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yes, I had a dog 17 years. Best $75 investment I've ever had. Bought her as the run of the litter of 10, half golden retriever, half yellow lab. It was the only thing that remained from my ex-wife, or my ex-married, I should say. But just a good dog. You know, everybody loved her. Just great natured. You know, just a absolute joy to be around. Spent a lot. I think the success of a dog comes with how much you spend time training them and how much time you spend with them. And spent a lot of time with her when she was a pup. Got her trained for walking and definitely, you know, she was supposed to be an outside dog. Eventually became an inside dog, and was just a great judge of character. You know, loved a lot of people. Only growled at a few people. I've only heard her like get very physical or in like a handful of situations with 17 years, but traveled the world with me for the most part across the United States, and you know, just everybody that met the dog enjoyed it. So that's the beautiful thing. And she just was. We were very blessed, very healthy most of her life until she got older. In the last year and a half, 2 years, she really slowed down and started having some medical difficulties. And Steph, you're a better understander of those because you were much more versed on the technical nature of animal ailments, I guess you could say, right?
I try to do a lot of research on things I didn't understand or things that I could find out and work on. And also, so Princess has a fan club across the country because she traveled so much with Scott for so long, and she was kind of a beach dog. She was a taco dog. She was a calendar model even. She has a lot of fans across the country. And so as she started to really get older, and when she finally started showing her age, which surprisingly really wasn't until about maybe a year and a half ago, she in fact lived a lot longer than most people would expect a dog of her breed to live. And so it was kind of funny when I would take her to the vet, you know, everybody, oh, she's so sweet, she's so cute. And she was a total sweetheart. And she was always friendly, and she'd come up and look at you and kind of nudge and just want you to pet her and talk to her. But they say, oh, how old is she? Is she about 10 years old? No, she's about 16 and then 17. And you're joking. There's no way. Well, we used to call her Princey the Wonder Dog. So, but she did have a fan club, and she has a fellow, like another mama that lives in San Antonio by the name of Sarah. So Sarah, if you see this, you're her other mama. And Sarah handled that stuff for her for a long time, so she knows a lot about that as well too. But Princey, overall, she did really, really well for many years. And then about 3-4 years ago, she started showing a bit of arthritis. And about 1.5 years ago, she really started to kind of stiffen up. And, she used to want to jump up on the sofa and she'd want to go hiking and swimming. And we could still take her out to do that. But the next day, she would get up on her bed. She wouldn't move. And she'd give you that look that clearly said, no.
And we're pretty lucky that she didn't have a lot of hip problems like a lot of people have had with hip or elbow dysplasia and things like that. And, very blessed, knock on the wood. We've got some friends out there who've had animals that have struggled with their hip issues. And that's, it's a common thing with labs or gold retrievers. And a big shout out to, some other friends who've recently lost pets like Lisa DeCastro and Frank Fiore lost Rocky literally like a week and a half ago before Princess passed last Sunday. And so the thing is, I almost had to put her down, 6 months ago, Steph, when she really got sick and didn't.
Yeah, in March.
Yeah. And when you've been with an animal for 16 years, 17 years, they're your daughter. And, Princess and I had a very long, nonverbal, visual conversation. She's like, this is not funny anymore, Dad. And I'm like, yeah. And fortunate enough, she came out of that bad week and was still hiking up the stairwell each night to come to bed. And, did well. Didn't do much sleep, slept and ate or went outside a little bit. But, it's always a hard decision when you've got to make that final decision to put an animal down. And that happened last Sunday for me in the morning, taking the dog outside. Just couldn't move hardly at all, barely moved. And I got that same look. I was like, okay, it's time. She's ready to roll. Unfortunately, I don't think you're ever ready to put your animal down, but it was a hard decision to make. And we have to give a big shout out to, the vet that came by the house. We actually did it in-house. On her bed, Steph and me both right there beside her. The vet that came in, I don't remember her name. Steph, you remember that stuff better than I do.
Dr. Barry. And Dr. Barry was an angel, honest to God. I don't know how she does that job. For someone to come into your home when you have emotions that run that high and what you're doing is the right thing. And that you don't want them to suffer. And for me, it was the first time I've ever had a vet come into my house to do that. When I was growing up, I had a vet that we took one of our dogs to the office, and the vet came out and, performed the procedure in the back of the truck. But to have someone come into your house is a totally different ball of wax. And so there's a little bit of nervousness associated with that too. But, you've got your baby on one side and this person comes in, and she just had amazing energy and a very sweet heart, and you could feel it. And she was very sensitive. She talked about the procedure and what she was going to do very specifically, very gently. And she did give her a really strong sedative, and it gave her a really good nap, actually. That was probably one of the things that I'll always remember, is that she had a really good nap. And it was so nice that she started to snore. And I was telling Sarah about this the other day, but she snores kind of loud anyway, but she hadn't snored like that in a while. So she snored. And it was reassuring because I knew, and Scott knew, she was totally out. And so nothing that would come after that was going to hurt her more than she already was. But what Dr. Barry did the procedure overall, I mean, it was maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes. She was there at the house with us, and we had some time in between while the sedative was kicking in to love on her and talk to her and, soothe her off to sleep and talk about the Rainbow Bridge, which a lot of us do. And then when Dr. Barry came back in and she did the rest of it, it was very, very smooth. I know there's sometimes where animals may twitch or jerk or something, and it can be frightening. Fortunately, she didn't do any of that. It was very, very peaceful. So all in all, that was something that I wouldn't have thought about doing until recently, because I just didn't have the heart to pack her up and try to take her into an office. So I think that's part of one of the points of this missive, is to tell people that service does exist, and there are good vets who kind of contract with it to come out and do that. So if you think that it's something that you're facing that's going to come up and happen, and especially with dogs that are, because Princess was pretty large, it's a nice alternative, and it's in your home. And there's a lot of peace associated for that. Another good aspect of it was that I also have 3 cats still, and they were able to be present in the home, close to Princey. Actually, they were all in the same room, and it helped them come to terms with the fact that she was passing over, and it was peaceful. Instead of taking her out of the house and then she just doesn't come back, because I've seen where with animals sometimes that can be pretty traumatic for them. They get depressed. They know something happened, but they're not really sure what. So that was, there's been a few days of adjustment, as naturally you can expect that. But overall, it's been an easier time for them than when my cat passed on before. So I wanted to put that out there and share that with people. If you've got something like that coming up and you have the time on your side to where you can plan ahead a little bit for it, that is a really it's an easier way to go and do it. And Dr. Berry, she took Princey with her, and they took her to one of the memorial centers in Austin where they do cremation, so you can choose what type that you want to do. And so we had her privately cremated, and actually she'll be coming home on about Thursday this week. So that'll be very nice. Scott,
Question for you. Yeah, I can hear you great.
Okay.
We're getting some comments from people out there about.
Yeah, I can't see any comments.
I know you can't. That's why I'm here to produce it for you. You're good. Let you just keep rock and rolling. Okay.
Thank you.
So one of the things that, like Tom Hazard said, he didn't even know this existed where people could come to the house. I went out and found the link for the Pet Loss at Home website and posted in the comments.
Thank you.
And then Laura says my vet came to the house with my Great Pyrenees because when her back legs, I couldn't lift her 110 pounds. Yeah. She was under her favorite tree watching the deer when she went.
That is awesome. Is that Laura Blanc?
Yes.
Hi, Laura. fellow sweetheart.
So why don't you share a little bit difference, because you did take unfortunately, when your cat passed, what was it, 2 years ago that Mitsuru passed, and you went and took him in to get him cremated, stuff like that. What was the cost for that?
The cost to have him cremated, it varied on a couple of factors. One was his size, his weight, which he was not very big, but he was 14 pounds, so it varies. But the biggest thing is what you choose, how you choose to do it, because one of the ways is to have them cremated sort of en masse with other animals that come in. And then for people who choose to do that, I have nothing against it. It's a very personal choice. They also give you the option to do a private cremation or an individual cremation where it's just them. And they vouch for it, because if you're anything like me, you're reading the fine print going, is it really just them? Because when I bring her home, I want just her. But they do. And so that was one of the things that I paid a little bit extra to do with him. And so I want to say it was about a little over $200 for everything. And they did one thing these companies often do, or the vet's offices will do, is do a paw print. So if you're not able to get a paw print done of your baby before they pass on, that's a really nice, especially if it's a sudden thing. Maybe you know it's coming, but it came really fast. They'll do a paw print, and oftentimes they'll take like a little lock of fur or something that's not anything gross, but just something, a little piece, and it's special. And in my case, they tied a little blue ribbon around it and put it in a little frame, and I've got a space on one side to put a picture of us, and then I've got his lock of fur, and I've got the paw print, and it's done in clay. And that's actually safely put away in a box because I'm a bit of a klutz and I don't want to break it. But I learned from that. So since then, I've gotten materials and things in to do, paw prints and casts of the cats. And I was able to do that of Princey. So I actually have a really, really good cast of her paws, which is something that, it was a good thing to learn. And God bless her, she was so gentle. She just sat there and let me do it. So that was the thing with her. She was always gentle. She got along with everybody. She got along with the cats. She was a wonderful, wonderful spirit.
So
And a
let's
sweet
let's
girl.
right, let's talk a little bit more about that. So Dr. Barry came in. It's actually a company in San Antonio and Austin. They've got two vets back and forth. They'll do it within an hour radius of Austin, or an hour radius, and they'll do it all times. It's not just 9 to 5. They do it pretty late too for you.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was the option.
and Princess is 80 plus pounds because she'd put some weight on with fluids and things like that. And then she had some ailments though, right? She had a tumor. She had some
She
cancer.
did. The arthritis was tough on her, but it was exacerbated by the fact that she started swelling about no October, November of last year, a little bit, but she blew up almost like a balloon in December. And so she had gone in for checkups, and she'd go in with Sarah, and she'd go get checked out at the vet in San Antonio. And round about that fall, when she started swelling up, it was all in her belly, and it was really weird. And we thought, well, God, she's putting on fluid. So we took her in, had her checked.
We thought she was just eating too much.
Well, there was that too, because she developed a hankering for cat food. She loved wet food. At the time, she was still eating dry food, but boy, if she could get her hands on the cat food, she was all for it, and I don't blame her. But she must have put on about maybe 15 something pounds in 2.5 months, and it was all centered in her belly. She didn't have swelling in anywhere else, in her paws, nothing. And so, I mean, it was baffling. When we took her in and they tested out, we scanned her, we did a heart scan on her, we did x-rays on her, we did everything. And our vet came back and said she's got an adrenal tumor. Now, Princey, being as old as she was already, and she also, like with any older animal, she had issues with her teeth. So she had a cracked molar in the back, and she had, some funk breath from time to time. But she was so old then that we really were hesitant to put her in under for anesthesia, because you just aren't sure if they're going to come back out of it. And when our vet told us that she had the adrenal tumor, it was hinged on the back end with her saying, I don't know that it's malignant. I'm going to assume that it is, but I can't get it out of her because of how it's attached and having to put her under anesthesia. And so that was really the definitive thing that we were like, well, okay, one way or another, that's, it's coming. But it was weird with that tumor. It was affecting her muscle mass, and so she was losing muscle, and that was part of a lot of the swelling that she started to have in her tummy and everything. And she got, if you're familiar, like you see old horses with the sway back, like the old mare syndrome or whatnot. I don't know if that's actually a word, but old horses, she started getting a bit of that. And she did lose some weight, but she started doing that, and we had her on medicine to help with the arthritis. We tried a couple of things, but one that really seemed to help her was a regimen of Rimadyl that our vet prescribed, and also gabapentin, which I always thought that was interesting because I'd only known of humans taking it. So she was on Rimadyl and gabapentin twice a day. And then a good friend of mine, actually, one of my Disney friends who'd had a lot of older dogs with similar issues with arthritis and just really bad leg pain, had recommended, she said, well, have you tried these injections with her? And I didn't even know that was a possibility. So we talked to our vet, and she came back and we started giving her Adequan injections. And she'd get one about every 4 days. And the thing with the Adequan, it would just, the idea was that the fluid would just go to where the cartilage was thin, or there were, where she was having joint pain, and it would help. And we did notice a marked difference in her mobility with that. So for quite a while, she'd get some pizzazz back in her step. She'd come trotting across the floor. She would even still, up until she would go and take walks. She'd get tired a little faster, so we didn't really go very far, but she'd like to go outside and walk around, and she could still walk herself. Those were things actually too, though, that helped her. I think that gave her that a few extra months of comfort. Because in March it was sort of a bad cycle, and she would have them from time to time where for a few days she really didn't want to move around very much. She was just very stiff and just kind of and every now and then she'd have an upset tummy, but she did that in March. And as Scott was saying, we really thought that was going to be it in March. And she wasn't very happy. So I made the decision, if nothing changes, we're going to take her in on Monday after class is over and, have her put to sleep. Well, Monday, I don't know what happened with her Sunday night, but Monday morning she woke up and she totally rebounded, and she got up and went over in the kitchen and she ate the cat's food, and she hadn't wanted to eat anything in 2 days. So when she ate the cat's food and she gulped down every bit of it, it was chicken. So it's, just wet food and chicken, stuff like that. I said, okay, fine. I'm going to go find the dog version of this wet food, and that's what you can have as much as you want.
And 12 million cases later.
12 million cases later, I went to the pet store and I bought all of it. And they laugh. They love me, but they laugh at me. Thank you, Trevor at Healthy Pet. I bought out their supply, and then I filled a bottom pantry with more of it just in case, because sometimes supply lines get interrupted and they run out. So we have still about a month's worth of food on stock. But she loved it, and she switched over to wet food, and it actually, I think it helped with her teeth too. But her appetite came back. She was on the injections regularly, and she just really rebounded. And so we're not sure if it was just that the tumor had gotten bigger, because you can't tell, or we couldn't tell. But the past week that she was here with us, she just really started to slow down, and she just, you kind of start to know when they're prepping, because they prep. They do, they are. Scott had an easier time of seeing it than I did, but he's known her longer, and she's his baby, and he's a bit more realistic about that than I am. So it was a little bit harder for me. But last Sunday, I could tell too, and I couldn't figure, we'll get through today or tomorrow and she'll rebound. It was kind of, even she gave me that look that was like, I'm done. So, not to stay on a positive note.
Well, the thing to keep in mind too for everybody is, as Laura says here on her, yes, when they're ready to go, they will tell you definitely. She told me that for sure. And the thing that keeps in mind is, okay, we booked it. We got it scheduled at 5 o'clock, the doctor to come at 5 o'clock. Dr. Bear came at 5 o'clock. And then, she's still laying in her bed. Stephanie there, the doctor comes and sits down, has some pepperoni.
Oh my God, yes. Tell them about the pepperoni. I don't know what's in that junk. It must be like crack. I mean, it's almost like catnip or something for our cat. She would eat, but she really didn't. She was doing the thing where she just didn't want to eat. And I was like, okay, I understand that. So I gave her a few treats, but when Dr. Berry came in, she whipped out a few of these pepperoni, they're like little sausage link looking things. And she gave her one, and all of a sudden, she's, I want the pepperoni, give me the pepperoni. And she really, she was so stiff or so sore or whatever was happening inside. She was just like, I really do not want to get up and walk around right now. I just want to lay here. But she was thinking about it. And so she perked her head up and she wolfed every bit of it down. And I remember looking at Scott, and I seriously thought to myself for a second, well, maybe that's a sign to, maybe give it an extra day. But behind the enthusiasm for the pepperoni, we still knew, like, it's not going to change anything on the physical aspect. It's still, we're still where we're at. But yeah, that was really cool though. And so we had it's hard to laugh at all when something like that's happening, but if you can kind of connect in the moment and still find a little bit of humor, even in the face of just pain, it's something that you can look back and remember once it's over with. And so I never will forget look on her face with those pepperonis. That and the snoring. And if it's not TMI, she had gas like a howitzer. She was totally happy about it. Whatever she had been hanging on to, she just it was so awful in one way because you're like, this is such a somber occasion, but wow, that really stinks.
Well, she's always had a little bit of a howitzer for a sphincter. Especially when she sleeps, she's known to wake herself up out of a deep sleep by farting.
Yes. Sarah used to tell me about that. And she's Princey was sound asleep and all of a sudden she'd fart and she'd wake up and go, that was not me. Oh yeah, sweetheart, it was you. She would fart so badly sometimes the cat would wake up and look at her like, the hell was that? Really? Can you knock that off? So yeah, that was funny. That was really, and to the credit for Dr. Barry, she laughed with us about it, but she's like, well, it does happen. And she, one thing is, as far as prep goes, I always have multiple boxes of wee pads, puppy pads, things like that. And that was one thing that she had said too, she may, once she really relaxes into the sedative and sleeps, and then afterwards she, just be prepared. There may be something that she releases or comes out as everything relaxes. And she was right. And it did.
The death shit.
That's what Scott called it. And I was mortified, but it gave him peace. And I was like, okay, fine. But he's been laughing about it. And he went on and told that to Tom, and Tom laughed too. And it's, you have to find a little bit of humor somewhere in it because it's just so damn depressing otherwise. And there's really just not another, there's not another word for it, right?
But what was also nice is Dr. Barry had a stretcher. She brought the stretcher in.
She did.
And the thing too to keep in mind is we sat down. She gave us, we gave Princess a sedative. And it took about 10 minutes for Princess to go from eating pepperoni to kind of being relaxed to then going to sleep and literally naturally going to sleep and starting to snore.
Yeah.
Right. And then Dr. Barry came in and we we're sitting there holding her, petting her, saying our goodbyes. And then Dr. Barry gives her a needle through a hose in her back paw to help her on her way. Okay. And it took about 5 minutes before Princess, was breathing and then got a little lumbered and snoring and one big breath, and then she was gone, right, Steph?
Yep. Actually, it was less than that. It was about 2 minutes, I think. Because I remember looking at the clock on your her watch or something, and yeah, so it was 5:28, 5:30, and then that was it. But it, like I was saying before, it was actually very peaceful, and that was something that, I've had animals pass away in their sleep, which for me is really more of a blessing. And I'm human. I have a hard time taking in to have them put down, and it's a last resort. And it's never, even when I know it's a merciful thing, it's like, God, this is so hard. But part of knowing that it's a merciful thing that you're doing is it helps to actually get through it and do it. But it was so peaceful for her to go that way and to make sure that the sedative was strong enough and it kicked in. It made that a lot easier. And again, it was just a lot easier having her at home and not having to go somewhere else that, I love our vet and I like the office, but then you've got the people and I boohooed like a baby. So, you come out and you're red faced and you look like Halloween mascara everywhere, and no mascara is waterproof, by the way. I thought mine was, it wasn't. So, that was a nice thing. I actually did not know. One of the things that I was worried about for the end was having to pick her up and carry her, because before that's what we had to do. And so when she brought out this, it was just a cloth thing with handles on each corner, and it was big enough to hold a large dog. And Princey was 85 pounds. They put her right on it and were able to pick her up and carry her outside. And so it didn't hurt her.
After wiping down the death shit.
Yes.
So the death shit didn't trickle down our legs. It was, oh my gosh. It's a bit of a joke there, but it was the only way to kind of handle it at the time. Like, oh my gosh, dog, you get the last laugh, definitely, for sure.
She really did.
But then, we put her on there, and then, of course, helped the Dr. Barry carry her out there. I did most of the carrying. I was like, this is better. Let me just carry her versus you dropping her. And placed her in the back, and we gave her one last kiss, and then Dr. Barry took her off to
the Memorial Center.
The Memorial Center to get her taken care of, right?
Yeah. So, and to be honest, the turnaround I feel like it's been really fast. I mean, I wasn't expecting her to come back for a couple of weeks, but I got a call on Wednesday, and they said that she was ready, and I can come in and pick her up. So, when we get back home, I'm going to go pick her up, and I'm not going to wear any mascara, because the other hard part is when you pick them up. It's great to bring them home, but that, holding that canister or that little box or that urn in your hand is like, okay, it's very final.
Well, what's been helpful is that we did have to leave almost immediately Monday morning. We went and had dinner. We, had a drink to celebrate Princess.
We did do that.
We didn't sit there and advocate just listening to the worst messages or the worst memories. We thought of some of the great ones, and hey, she's in a better place. It's better that she's not hurting anymore. And of course, jump on a plane and fly out to Philadelphia for the podcast movement has been nice. The most stressful thing was you did get that phone call Wednesday. Our vet at Banfield called me yesterday, and I answered and told them that Princess had passed, to cancel anything. And they were very upset to hear that, because they loved her as well. And of course, our good friend Sarah Wilson, Auntie Sarah in San Antonio, is pretty depressed as well. We had to reach out to her husband via text message, that day, but do it to him, because if I sent it to her, she'd have been devastated. She was still devastated at night when Jonathan told her, but it's never easy. But the thing is I don't plan on holding on to an urn long term. What I plan to do is take the ashes, go down to Miami Beach or Gulf Shore beaches in Alabama, and sneak on the middle of the night to the best Western resort down there, and go out and spread the ashes and just let it go. And that's what one of her favorite places to be at, to run crazy and circle eights around the beach and go from there. And that's a good way to doing it. And will I have another dog again at some point? Of course. I've had some dreams recently about that, and nothing too soon, but I'll have another dog again. Yeah, it'll be another golden lab, hopefully. But that's the thing. It's not moving on, but you still have to live life. I think that's one of the most important. People have a hard time sometimes, and is it going to suck when we fly home in the next day or so and we walk in and I look for that freaking yellowhead to jump up and come greet us? I'm excited. That's going to suck. It's got me a little verklempt right now. But it is what it is. We move on. That's one thing about life. I was very, very fortunate to have 17 years with such an amazing animal, and Steph's had almost 7 with her as well too, and the dog definitely grabbed some hearts along the way, and she's on the other side. So I'm a firm believer there's an animal heaven. God wouldn't have created such these bonds between animals and people if there wasn't one. I think, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So let's talk a little about that. You've talked a little bit about the cost to get your cat memorialized. What's the cost been for us to bring Dr. Barry out to the house and get that all taken care of? What's been the cost for that stuff, so people are aware of that?
That one, again, I'm going to say it has to vary. It really does. Because when I looked at the pricing for it, I was a little, okay. But given the fact that it was on a Sunday and it was, after 3:00 in the afternoon, I mean, she came out at 5, and she would have even come out at 8. We said, well, let's go ahead and do this, while it's still daylight and it's 5 and it's a little bit early. But coming out on a Sunday is something that, I value their time, and I think that they do charge for it. But also with Princey, I found out because of her weight, it was like 200 and something or 300 almost to even get her cremated, just because of her weight. So when I get that back, that's something else that I want to look at, because on Sunday last week I was just not all there. So all totaled though, I mean, it was over $600. But she came out. It was Sunday. She spent the time with us. She did the sedative. She brought the injection. It was very, very, very gentle. She took her back, and it paid for the transport and everything. Like, we didn't have to do anything. We just, we got through the procedure, and then she was gone. So for the don't really want to say the convenience of it, but for the timing of that, and for someone to come in when you're, you know, that upset about it, it's if it's a service that is worthy for you, then it was well worth it. But I know it does vary for everybody, and I know it varies on a couple of different factors. Part of that was the cremation, what you chose to do, and so it could have been less expensive as well. So I wouldn't put that number out there like that's the end all, that's all it's ever going to be. So, but it's well worth looking into. Definitely worth looking into.
I'm not going to argue about a $700 bill to take care of my dog.
No, I mean, yeah.
You've spent a small fortune in medical bills over the years, all told, right?
And it's been worth every penny of it. But I wanted to talk about some of the ways when they pass on, and a lot of us who've had our babies go, like Lisa's just dealing with this too. I've got a friend of mine that, you know, she had to, she made a very merciful, humane decision to go and put one of her cats to sleep. Again, CRF and old age, which was beneficial that she lived to be that old. It's really shocking. It's cool. But it's so hard. Right after it happens, you feel kind of numb. You know, you when they go, they take, it's like the air blows out of the house. You know, they take so much with them at first, and you know it's coming, but it doesn't sink in. And then you walk around. I can't tell you how many times I would walk around the corner, even just that night, and expect her to be sitting there looking at me from the doorway. And part of that is forced habit, and part of that, you know, sometimes we wonder, well, do they stick around for a little while after they pass, before they really pass? Some people say they do. Some people say they don't. Yeah, it's a personal feeling that you get or you don't. But it you just feel pretty shell shocked afterwards, and you know, when you cry and you have the grief for it, it's raw. So rather than, we tried to be very proactive, to be positive, even though we're, you know, it's hard to be positive when that happens. You really don't want to, but to really sit down and like Scott said, we went to go have dinner because we had to eat. We hadn't eaten all day, and we were starving, and you get that nauseous, tired feeling too. But we went to go eat, and you know, instead of crying at the table again, we made the conscious decision. It's like we're gonna cheers to her. We're gonna focus and try to celebrate her life. And so we spent a lot of time this week talking about, you know, her passing, and really, you know, quieting down any misgivings or second guessing or guilt or anything like that we all have about when you have to have them put to sleep. Instead of just pushing it under the rug and not talking about it, we talked about it quite a bit. And we talked about a lot of good memories of her, and we started doing that almost right away. I know when I lost my cat, I didn't do any of that for a while, and it was a lot. It was very hard, and looking back on it, I kind of wish I had reached out to some people and had conversations instead of just taking it all into myself and, you know, crying about it. So when people in our circle have little ones that they lose, you know, a lot of them will go to Facebook or social media and they put that post out there, and it's hard to do that. Scott did it for Princey. I couldn't do it. But he did. And he had a really nice, really great pictures of her. And so that was one of the things that we had to do. We stopped before we went to go eat, and he pulled up his laptop. He opened up his pictures, and he was busting out pictures from 15 years ago. Pictures of even when she was a puppy, the picture of her with the paw. I've seen that maybe twice, you know, because they get in our laptop and we don't print them or anything. But he had all these pictures of her. And so it was an immediate buoy to, you know, go, God, you know, she really did have an amazing life. And this is part of life. You know, we're really going to friggin' miss her, but she had a good life. And I think, you know, going through and not walling up and talking to people about it and reaching out to your friends, we all get it. If anybody ever tells you, I don't want to hear about your dog, I don't want to hear about your cat, they're not your friend, or they've never had an animal. And, you know, I wouldn't wish that feeling on anybody, but people who have animals, there's more of us that get it, and more of us who are like, yeah, you can come cry on my shoulder. I will give you a hug and we'll sit and talk about it. That's fine. If you want to text me pictures of them or put those on Facebook, I'm going to go in and love and like every one of them and share the memory with you, because I feel like, you know, if we take that minute to, even over social media, to hold each other up. It sounds kind of sappy, but it helps to distribute part of that pain to where it's not so much pain as much as it becomes, it's like a healing thing, and you can find the joy and remember the happy times, and you're not just transfixed on how awful or the painful parts of it. A lot of times in rescue, they have to put so many little ones down because they've been there. I mean, it's been serious trauma. They've been hit by a car, or they were abused, or just something horrible happened. And you don't have that luxury of time, but they always say, every one of them, that even if they've picked up an animal that wasn't even theirs, if it was a stray or an animal they found on the side of the road, or one that they just adopted, if it was a recent thing, that for that hour or for those few hours or whatever, that little one, it knew it was loved. It knew it had love, and helps to ease the passing of it and the crossing of it. And then they reach out on social media, and they share that with us. And so we all kind of come together as a group, and each of us has something to contribute to that. Each of us. So I think my point is that I really think we can shoulder and bear more of it. And it's easier to do it that way than to try to take everything into yourself, because it can really, really be depressing, and it's hard to climb back up out of. So when Scott said, probably the best thing was having to leave, we may joke, we never stop. We're always going, yada, yada. But it was hard to get on that plane, and he did it anyway. And, cause we had that conference booked, and it just happened that it was the conference that it was. And we, had paid time and money and everything else. And it made sense to go because we couldn't change anything. But it was also, it was hard to get on the plane. And so reaching out and talking to people about it this week has helped tremendously, I think, with that. And it just reinforces the knowing that when it's the right time and you do it, it's the right time. And not to make yourself feel so guilty, because we have a awful way of second guessing everything we do. When it's over, you come back and say, well, what if I had just, and what if I had done this sooner? And it doesn't help. It doesn't change anything.
Now we have to give a big shout out to 360 people who did respond on Facebook.
Oh my God, yes.
I read those, and guys, I cried. It's part of the huge reason why I couldn't, I loved reading them. They made me cry, but it was very cathartic at the same time. And I couldn't answer a lot of that stuff. I couldn't post on my own social media. So, but we read every single one of them, and you guys, that's what I'm talking about. Like what you all said, and that knowing, and, there's so many folks that were like, they're a part of your family. They're like your children. You had that many years with them. You've grown up your entire adult life with them. You've raised them since they were a baby. So you were there when they were a baby, and you took them all the way through life. And damn it, you were responsible enough and lucky enough and good enough and sweet enough that you rode that path with them all the way through death, and that's a big thing. That is a huge, huge, huge thing. So for all of you guys that came out and said something, thank you. Very, very much so.
We've had a few cries off it, but it's helped, it's helped with anything. And I think it's the most important thing is not to hold it inside, but share a little bit, and do your best to move on. That's the best way we look at it. And big shout out to everybody there. I want to say Heidi Market says we have 3 rescue dogs ourselves. Awesome. Yeah. She also says on with pets, while they are a big part of our lives, we are their whole lives.
We are.
So always be glad when we've done for them and to have a great one. Exactly. Julianne Ferrara says, good job. Nice to see you doing your own podcast. She'll keep watching, which is good. Isn't Steph doing a great job? So if you like what Steph's doing, make sure to make a comment, because she's, like anybody else, a little self-confident about what's going on.
Subconscious.
Self-conscious, definitely. One thing I wanted to talk about is we do have a really great animal sitter, pet sitter. We have to give a big shout out to it. And why don't you share a little bit what she shared about with how the cats have kind of given notice?
So as Scott was saying, we have a really good pet sitter, and her name is Jamie. And I'm not going to tell you her last name because I'm not going to have you poach her from me. Because I am monopolizing a lot of her time. And I've gone through pet sitters, and nothing happened negatively on the back end. They just, some of them have had to move, or they've gone back to school, or they've moved. Actually, 3 of them moved. And that's fine. That's I miss them if they ever come back. I'm like, hey, but it's hard to go out and find somebody that you trust to one thing, come into your house, and 2, spend time with your animals, be with your babies, and especially you not being there. So I love my pet sitter.
But the point we're trying to get to here, Steph, we're trying to get to the point here.
I know.
About, because all 3 of the cats did come out when Princess was taking her final nap.
They did, and they were there. And so my oldest, who's 15 years old, she sat over on the far side of the couch. My Tabby, who's my middle, she's 13. And the other thing, with my Tabby, with Mara always loved Princey. And Mara had this really adorable habit of, she talks a lot. Meow, 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 meow. She talks all the time. And Mara would walk under Princey, or if Princey was just standing up walking around, Mara would go over there and go up to her and try to head bunk her from below. And in the beginning, Princey would look down at her like, what do I do? And she'd look at me like, what do I do? I'm like, she says love on her. It's okay. She's like a mama dog. She'd let her do it. But Mara's a bit of a nurture bug. And so she's, she wants to give you a bath, and she's just very sweet and affectionate. And so I remember, and don't laugh at me for saying this, but I mean, I talk to my pets a lot, and I tell them, hey, we're going to go do this, or we're going to the vet or whatever. And so I told them, I said, today is, you probably know this before I do, but she's going to pass over. She's going to cross over. So, go spend some time with her. And when we were sitting on the ground by her bed, Mara literally came over to her, and she kind of did her, her little head thing. And then she laid down right next to her. And I looked at that cat, and I was like, wow, you guys, you have a relationship. You really, you love each other, it. And it was moving to see, because a lot of times you don't get to see that. And so I was grateful that, Mara got some peace, and Princey got the peace of having Mara there with her. I don't know what they said to each other. I'm sure they said something, but it was really phenomenal to watch. And my youngest, who you guys see on Facebook more than any of them, Ramy, the tuxedo, Ramy chose his position. Part of it at first was on the ground, on the floor on the other side of the table, and he was just watching. He was watching very intently, and he never did the head bonk thing like Mara did, but he'd come over, kind of, they talked to each other, and they got along. They were fine. But Ramy got up on the sofa and laid down, and so he was literally maybe like 3-4 feet behind me. And when Mara and Princey had their say and they were done, Mara very definitively got up, and she seemed a little like. She got up, she walked over to the couch, she jumped up on the couch, she laid down next to Ramy, and then he started giving her a bath. And it was just a very loving thing. So they were there. No, it doesn't. I mean,
never happens.
It just, you could feel, I guess, like the energy of it. And it's something that it's not just us that feels it when one of them goes. They all feel it. I mean, they've lived together for 6 years. They love each other. They know each other. My oldest cat that had passed on, she and Princey, I used to joke, because he was the alpha and she's the mama dog. And so they were the oldest. And so I always say they're my 2 generals. They guard, and they make sure the house is okay, and they keep everyone in line. And it was very sweet. And, but they used to, my cat would get up on the couch and lay with her, and she would let him do it. And every now and then he was a jerk, and he'd, smack her on the nose or paw smack her or whatever if she moved, or if her tail thumped him in the, which I don't blame him for the tail part, but they got along, and they would basically snuggle. And so it was really, really, really sweet to see her do that with Princey, and to see that Ramy was actively like he wanted to stay. And something that Jamie's told me, afterward, Ramy has been, I don't really know how to put it. Very watchful of her space in her bed, because her bed's there, her blankets. I didn't want to take everything out of the house. I have a hard time with that anyway, but I did not want to take everything out right away. And, I wanted it to be something to where it was kind of gradual for them. And I mean, they know, but something kind of gradual where, okay, it's not that much of an upheaval. But she's told me that Raimi will actually kind of sit there by her bed, which he doesn't usually do. He goes sits on the sofa. He flops over on the ottoman. He lays on the stairs. He goes and watches the fish. He's a little fish terrorist.
Lays on people's shoes.
Lays on people's shoes. He does a lot of that. Actually, and I just remembered this. When the vet came in, she took her sandal shoes off, and Raimi walked up to her. And I always say he's kind of a fearless cat, but if he doesn't like you, you'll know it. He just doesn't. He won't have anything to do with you. But if he does like you, he'll walk up to you and he'll give you that, that curious sniff, and he'll size you up and then decide, okay, I like you or I don't. Well, he decided he liked her, which actually gave me further peace of mind, because if my babies like you, you're probably a good person. And then he went and laid on her shoes. So I was like, all right. And then he got up on the couch, and that was when he gave Mara the pat. So they've definitely they've had some adjustments this week, and like I said, Jamie was telling me that he was watching her her blanket and her bed, and would go on it, and Mara would get on it from time to time. And they were pretty kind of somber the first day or two. And then now they're starting to act a little bit more relaxed, or more kind of at ease, or more normal. And I get I had told her too, and Scott's probably going to laugh at me for this, but I actually saged my house on the day that she passed, before she passed, and all of them. And I've had a lot of friends that do animal Reiki and do, holistic stuff, holistic healing, that it's never a bad idea to sage your house or to sage yourself, but it helps for them. And sometimes they are open to receiving it. Sometimes they don't. Actually, it was interesting. Princey's always enjoyed it when I've done it. Raimi enjoys it when I do it. And I know they do because they'll walk into it and they're very like, okay. Now, my girls could care less. My oldest is like, you can get that away from me. And she goes off and does her own thing. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm respectful of what you don't want to receive. That's cool. But I saged the house that day. And I put stock into it that it helps to clean out some negative energy or some painful energy. And when I get home, I'll probably do it again. But I think that's in its own way has been helpful for them too. But it's something that I can't explain. I can't explain that. So I just, it was one of the things that we did as a coping thing and a healing thing that day.
Yeah, as long as you're not up on the second floor trying to teach a class with sage coming up into your nostrils, it's not bad. So.
Well, you were sick too, so.
So let's kind of get to the point. We're getting close to our hour here, but what's probably the biggest thing that you want to leave people with? That there are travel vets that will come into the house to help them out, correct?
There are travel vets. There are services now, and I think we're going to see a growth in that. I really do. It's a blessing.
We should probably have Dr. Barry on here at some point, huh?
That's not a bad idea.
Right.
That's not a bad idea.
The second thing, if you're going to leave, to have a pet sitter, somebody come in to monitor your pets while you're gone, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the great thing about it is the more they come in, the more they get to know your littles, and they know their nuances and their personality changes. So like I can talk to Jamie this week and she knows, she's been around them enough now that she's like, yeah, Fury's good. Raimi's a little sad. Mara's kind of, okay. And then the next day, okay, he's not, he's clearly like he feels better, or he's feeling a little bit more perky, or he's getting sassy again. And so they know those differences. And that's also something that when they know it, you can head things off at the pass if there's something wrong. And so it's really great to be able to have that as a, what's the word I'm looking for?
An asset.
An asset.
Yeah. What does a pet sitter charge, just so that folks know, because we got a question here.
It ranges. I've seen pet sitters that, mostly they charge by the visit, or they'll charge out by the day. Some will charge by the visit and per animal, and usually it's less expensive or more economical, if you want to put it that way, for to do more. So if you have multiple pets or have them come in a couple of times a day. I know for me, Jamie comes in 2 or 3 times a day, depending on, what's going on that week. And usually I have her come like 3 times a day, just for me, because it's nice for them to have that interaction and to have somebody coming in. So, but it can vary. The things that make it vary are if they're coming in and just spending time and feeding them, versus if they need to administer medication. So sometimes they'll have to pill them, or if there's an injection or something like that. So you can look for people that are experienced, that had that experience that can do it, or if they're vet techs and they can do it.
What's cost?
Anywhere from $10 to like $25 a visit. And usually you can lump those together for a day. And then you've got some pet sitters that are able to stay for overnights. And those, I've seen those range from like 40 something a night, 50 a night, to upwards of 100 a night, depending on how many animals you have and what you ask them to do. So, it's one of those things where when you first, and I'll be honest, it's, when you first do it, you're like, God, I gotta go and pay for a whole bunch of other stuff. Okay, cool. But then you think about it, your animals are like your littles, for those of us that they are. And I would much rather spend the money and have somebody come over and I know that they're safe and I know that they're being loved on and being taken care of. I'm okay with spending the extra money to do that. So, if I go spend $20 a visit, I'm fine with that. For me personally, I mean, I know it varies for everybody depending on their financial situation. So you can look around and find somebody in that budget. But I think my point is that it's worth the expense. It's an asset, as Scott said. But that peace of mind, and then, when you get back and your littles are like, oh, okay, you're back. All right, fine. They've had a good week. And you don't have to take them to the vet and have them boarded and stressed out or anything like that. So you're also paying for the convenience of them being able to stay at home and be loved on. And so it doesn't stress them out, which is a godsend.
Right. And it's a good thing. Plus the fact that she takes a lot of photos and sends you photos of the cats.
Oh my God, yes. And right. Videos.
And puts captions to them as well.
She does. You can't have her.
So really appreciate if you've enjoyed listening to this or watching this. Feel free to share this across the board. We'd really appreciate it. Get the word out on this podcast. That stuff's really doing a tremendous job. You've got another animal rescue or animal escort coming up here in the next week or two, correct?
Mm-hmm. Actually, yes. The third, it's a 2-weekend. It just went live this morning. It's a 2-weekend deal, meaning the drivers, the transporters, are going to start transporting on August the 10th and the 11th that weekend, and then it's for 2 cats, and those cats are headed into San Antonio. One of them is their home is going to be in San Antonio. The other one is going on further north, up in through Oklahoma, and I think I need to pull the city for that because I literally just saw this a few hours ago. But I'm actually really, really excited because for once we finally have a vehicle transport going through Austin and going north instead of just coming down. So I'm signing up. I'm excited about that because usually I'm flying, which I love to do, but it's cool when it's in your hometown, and it doesn't happen that much. And the only reason for that is we have a lot of dead zones in Texas, so we need more volunteer drivers. So if you ever feel the urge that you want to spend an hour or two on your Saturday and drive a cat or volunteer for another group and drive a dog, ours is the Cat's Meow Transport. And Scott, you can link that. I know you can. And they do transports every weekend. So that's coming up in August. And then I'm sure we'll have another one in September now that we're back and, we don't have as much travel. Well, we have travel on the schedule, but nothing, it's all in the States, so all local. So really excited about that. Yeah. Thank you for the reminder.
So on the next episode, we'll be talking a little bit about that and some other good stuff, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, big shouts out from people here. Deb Fitzpatrick says, hi, Stephanie. Athena Paquette says, love it.
Hi, thank you, Athena.
Yeah, Phyllis says, I don't know if I said this already, if the saging even if the saging doesn't do anything, it does make the house smell fantastic. Yeah, like burnt kale. Yeah.
It does not smell like kale.
Burnt kale, get it right.
No. But guys, one thing before he closes, I'm glad we got to talk about the fact that service does exist, because I don't know if it did up until recently. So that's a benefit for all of us, and I think it's going to grow, and I hope it does. But it's a great thing to have available. And when we lose our littles, when they pass on, don't close yourself off. You know, the human heart has an amazing capability to take a lot of pain, but that doesn't mean that we just bottle it all up and keep it onto ourselves, because it's harmful. And so it's, you know, I know for me, a lot of times personally, I don't want to be a drag on somebody else, and, you know, well, oh my God, because it's hard. But like I said, it's one of the great things about social media. You know, you can reach out to someone, and we're always there for each other. Reach out to your friends, reach out to, you know, your network. You don't put something simple, you know, but share that. There's a lot more people out there that are going to be able to commiserate with you and to give you that, you know, that hug or that pat on the shoulder, or at least, you know, just saying, hey, I understand. And they actually do. You know, they have no reason to lie about it. They get it. Everybody's lost someone that they love, whether they have 2 legs or 4 legs or 3 in the case of tripods. But everybody has somebody that they've lost. And we all, you know, when we lose family members, we reach out and rely on each other. So it's something that we should do and can do more with our animals. So that's a huge thing. It helps a lot on the back end of it. So.
It definitely helps to share. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate you hitting the share button. If you're watching this or listening to this on iTunes or Stitcher, feel free to give Steph a 5-star rating and share it amongst your friends and family as well. If you're part of any groups, want to give a big shout out to Sarah on here. Sharon Burton, Sharon says she's a member of the Cats Meow out of San Antonio, which is great stuff. So we look forward to having the next episode up live a little bit sooner than between episode 1 and 2, right, Steph?
It'll be sooner. I think part of the reason for the delay, we had a couple of big trips and we had several big events going on. And then there's also my own self-consciousness, because it's hard to get out of your own shell and do this. But the fact is, I actually have fun doing it. And I hope that as we go along, we'll be able to share some fun stories, some educational things, some things of value with everybody. And just, you know, take some time out of the day to connect and have a good time and learn something along the way too. So the sun's starting to set. On that note, I also too, I love suggestions and ideas for things that you guys want to talk about, or, you know, hopefully soon we'll get actually a page up and running, and I'd love to be able to share some of our pictures of our babies together, because I love that. I mean, who doesn't love that? That's always fun. And we have such a broad network that's, you know, it's good. So I think that's everything. Okay.
See you on the next episode.
See you on the next episode. It'll be sooner than this one. Bye.